Welcome to Hope at Night, featuring John Boston. Q&A with our live audience. And host, Anil Kanda. Today's episode, Do Angels Exist? And here's your host, Anil Kanda.
Welcome to Hope at Night. We have an exciting program for you tonight. It's going to be about angels. I want to start by asking our studio audience a question. How many of you believe in the existence of angels? Raise your hand. Wonderful. Research shows that 31% of Americans, about 3 out of every 10, do not actually believe in the existence of angels. But would you believe in an angel if you saw one? Today we'll meet someone who found himself in a life and death situation with few options of survival. Let's watch this news clip to see what happened.
It was early spring 2015 in Columbus, Ohio.
It's a great day, beautiful day.
Pastor John Boston was driving on Airport Road when a car crossed into his lane.
Well, one fireman, he said, "You didn't hit the pole, you went through the pole."
A utility pole. The live transformer landed on John's vehicle.
And so thousands of volts are running through the car.
With his seatbelt stuck and door jammed, all he could do was watch the searing and consuming heat.
The windshield was melting, dripping, and the passenger window was folding into the car.
Literally liquefying before his very eyes, as seen in this picture.
I thought to myself, I'm not going to get out of here.
But then a stranger appeared. He says a scruffy-looking man who easily opened the smashed door.
He reached in, he took me out. We walked maybe 20 yards from the car.
Just before the car exploded in flames.
I got goosebumps. With the transformer on the car on fire, that's probably one of the worst runs we could roll up on.
It's like a fireworks show.
Immediately, people tried to rationalize what happened. Maybe the circuit breaker tripped and Johnny fled because he has a past. However, firefighters say breakers are designed to reset themselves, and electricity was clearly coursing through the vehicle when help arrived.
The person who touches that car he's the ground.
You'll be electrocuted.
This video shows other cases of transformers blowing up, making rescue attempts extremely complicated.
You're going to have to jump away from the car and then shuffle your feet and follow those procedures.
Let's welcome to Hope at Night, John Boston. John, that's an incredible story.
Whew. Yeah, hard to believe for me still.
What was going through your mind when you were in that car and everything was just falling apart right before your very eyes?
Anil, I remember it every day. I think that I realized at a point I'm not going to make it out of this. I tried my seatbelt, I tried the door, I couldn't get out. I said, this must be it. And I put my head back on the headrest, and I thought for that moment, I just can't get out. In the very moment that I accepted that I couldn't get out, the door that I could not open opened. This guy just reached in and took the seatbelt off. The car was extremely hot. I'm from South Florida, so I know hot. And it was an unbelievable experience. He didn't carry me, but somehow he just kind of took me out of the car, and we moved, I'd say 20 yards. I'm a football fan, so I speak in yards. I could feel the heat behind me. But he looked at me and he said, "Hey, you're going to be okay. My name's Johnny."
Do you think Johnny was an angel? What did he look like?
You know, Anil, in that moment, no, I did not. When he told me the police are on their way and I can't be here when they get here, I just accepted he must have some trouble in his past, and I got that. I'm kind of from the hood, so I was like, I get it. you better go ahead and get out of here, Doc. And when I looked back, the car was melting into the road. It had already, there was no tires or paint or glass, and I realized in that moment I had been in that car. It wasn't until later that as we began to talk and I was interviewed by the fire department, police department, my wife, she said, this was an angel. And I realized that what happened was not normal, but I didn't realize that that was an angel at the time.
When you think about angels, what is your expectation of what angels are supposed to look like?
Yeah, not Johnny. I'll tell you that. Johnny was a real scruffy kind of looking guy. I knew his hands were dirty. And you know, even as I think about it, someone shared with me, maybe his hands were dirty because he had to touch a car that was conducting thousands of volts of electricity. But I anticipated angels would have wings at least. And I realized in this experience that and as I look back over my experiences in my studies, I realized angels really show up the way we need them to. And Johnny needed to be looking like a scruffy mechanic. And if he were my guardian angel, he were dirty enough to prove that I'm always in trouble. And so, yeah.
I can imagine my guardian angel having lots of gray hair.
Yeah, probably.
With me,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You know, when you think about angels, we obviously see different descriptions in Scripture. We see different things that they are doing. What does the Bible teach about the role of angels?
Yeah, this word angel, angelos, this Greek construct, the idea is messenger, the one that goes, the one that is sent. And we know that angels have immense power. You know, in one instance, Scripture talks about the way angels move like lightning, and lightning moves about 87,000 miles per second. So they're fast and they're strong and they can shapeshift, it sounds like, based on how they appear to show up in different instances. But in this instance, for me, Johnny showed up in a way that I needed him to do what I needed him to do, and he was gone. So fundamentally, angels are assigned to a specific task, and they do that well.
Well, angels come in different forms.
Sure.
We read about that, right, in Scripture.
Yeah.
Sometimes people themselves are called angels,
Yeah.
and sometimes angels take the forms of human beings. You talked about angels protecting, and you also brought out this idea of guidance. What else do angels do in the Bible?
Angels were the first Uber delivery. So they deliver, they protect, they guide. I think another thing is angels bring messages. We see this in Daniel 2 or 7, and these are important passages where angel says, look, I can explain this. And that's really great when you're unclear about something. And so I think for me, having this angel show up in my life was a very distinct reminder. The message that he gave me was not verbal. It was an active message. I've been sent essentially to save your life because I'm not done using you. And I think we struggle with purpose and identity, and I think God has to use angels sometimes to help us with that. We got to be careful, because if they're good angels that bring truth, a message of encouragement, maybe these same powers could be used to deceive us in the very end if we're not careful.
Right. So you just opened up a can of worms. So you just talked about good angels and bad angels. What does the Bible say about these fallen, evil, bad angels?
Yeah, there's definitely...
Where do they come from?
Definitely a clear narrative in the last book of the Bible written by... I'm John the Boston, but this guy is, John the Revelator, right? And he wrote this narrative on how there was a war in heaven, and a third of the angels had to be put out because they joined this incredible angel, Lucifer, Lucifer, son of the morning, Satan, the dragon, the serpent, the deceiver, the father of lies.
So you're saying God did not create evil angels and good angels, but he had just created good angels, and then you said there was war?
Yeah, there was war. There was a real war. Michael and his angels fought against Satan and his angels. And I don't think you could ever win against God, but I think it's an indication of his long-suffering nature that I'm even willing to act like you might win, to give you a chance to turn around. And so they were displaced, I should say. And Satan came and tempted this world. And because angels have that ability to show up in these unusual ways, he deceived the first human beings God created in Genesis. And that deception has been perpetuated. Even in the end, his first lie was, hey, you're not surely going to die if you disobey God. And even today, man, there's so many movies and shows and ideas of passing over that are still with us. And that same lie is still with us. And I think that's a deception from angels.
You brought up this idea of Lucifer, you know, this devil. And you said, look, God did not create devils or fallen angels, evil angels. Why was there a rebellion in heaven? The idea of war in heaven, that's kind of a misnomer, because heaven is not the place where you would hear about war, see war, or experience war.
Sure.
Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, you know, Lucifer wanted to be like the Most High. He wanted a power and a role that was not his. And I think this is where we also get in trouble. This is kind of the byproduct of free choice. We can choose to follow the one who created us, and we can also choose not to, right?
Interesting.
And so he chose against, and God couldn't have that. He couldn't let that be permeating or propagated throughout heaven. And so he had to say, you got to make a choice. I've got to put you out. And he did. And Lucifer fought. He lost, came to earth and won. He won here because humanity rebelled against God. But the beautiful thing is the story doesn't end there. He's not going to win in the end. And there's one scripture that I absolutely love, that you should always be careful about how you treat people, because unaware, you might entertain an angel. And I think that the idea of people that come and encourage us, affirm us, support us, save us, are equally matched with a truth that there are angels that discourage us, bring harm to our lives, and sow bad seed on good ground. So God, he can nobody plants weeds.
Right.
People may plant weed, but nobody plants weeds.
So you just talked about good angels, bad angels. We're in a world full of them. Mm-hmm. How do you know the difference between a good angel and a bad angel?
Angels bring us out and push us forward and point us to God. And I think in the final analysis of it all, the notion is that we're gonna have truth, single truth, and truth is becoming difficult to navigate, right? But I think I know God's word is going to be sure, and in the end, the idea of deception is only going to be countered with us knowing truth, God's plans for us.
As we get closer and closer to the end of time, are we going to see more of this? We're going to see more of an intensity of angelic experiences, dynamics, interactions, or is it just going to be as it's always been?
Anil, I think probably I have had hundreds of people around the world reach out and indicate that they've encountered angels. I've had people in other faith communities that were not Christian, people that don't own or access a Bible. And they said, I had something like this happen to me, whether they fell in a well or were, I remember one lady wrote and said she was running for her life as a refugee, and a bomb exploded, and someone led her through the fire and got her and her child to the other side. And I've saved these stories because they remind me that God will send us what we need to pull us through. I think the deception comes when we are more interested in the power that we can get instead of the glory that God can get. And I think that's the key to the deception.
Interesting. You know, I've got to push back here a little bit. I hope you're okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, when hearing these fantastic stories of angelic intervention and just seeing the way that God moves and works, why doesn't that happen for all people?
Yeah.
You know, hearing a story of how God works in one situation, it begs the question, what about this situation where we didn't see angelic intervention? What would you say to a person who asks that question?
Yeah, this is heavy. And if I can be very personal with you, that accident did leave me with a traumatic brain injury. And it took months and years to try to recover my speech. I professionally speak and teach. And that was 2015. In 2022, I was in another car accident. I was hit by a snowplow. And because my brain had to heal, I was more susceptible to those injuries. And so in a very personal way, an angel did not deliver me in that instance. No one came to my aid. I've lost largely my career, my financial position in life, and it's been quite devastating and challenging and overwhelming. I will say that while no angel came in that instance, an overwhelming tide of people have come to say, you're going to be okay. You're going to make it. And so I think sometimes he dispatches supernatural, and sometimes he dispatches angels that are not supernatural. They're called human beings.
They always come in different forms.
I believe that. I believe that.
John, another question. Do we pray to angels? Can we pray to angels, or do we just pray for angels?
We don't need to pray to angels any more than we need to pray to the sun or the moon, because they are created as we are. We can pray to the Creator, the one who sent us. I have a car. When my car gives me a problem, I don't go to the salesperson. I go to the mechanic or the manufacturer's mechanic, because they're the ones that can deal with it. And so for me, I wouldn't call on Johnny if I get in trouble. I'd say, oh, Johnny, come and get me. I would say, Jesus, please, come and get me out of this, because he can send Johnny or he can send Anil. Whatever I need, I think he'll send that.
It makes sense. Yeah. Thanks so much, John. This is an incredible discussion. I'm excited to learn more. We've been talking with John Boston about his escape from a burning car at the hands of what many believe has to be an angel. In our next segment, we'll talk more about a different kind of angel that helped him also, so don't go away. Welcome back to Hope at Night. We've been talking with John Boston on the topic of angels and how it was likely an angel that rescued him from a near-death experience. John, it was not just this experience that taught you about angels. There was another group of angels, search angels, that helped you out. Could you tell us more about that?
Neil, I was adopted when I was a baby, and I had a beautiful family. I really, really, really did. And but there was always a hole in my heart about where I came from, a sense of rejection. Like, why would somebody give someone as beautiful as me up, you know? And I think that over the years, I put off trying to search. I had some false starts. A friend of mine encouraged me to go ahead and do a DNA test and see what we could find. And so I did, got the results. And there was a cousin, a third cousin or second cousin that lived not too far from where I was. So I reached out to him on social media. We got together. This was at a difficult time in recent American history. I knew my biological family was Caucasian, and I was raised in an African American context. And so it was quite a lovely sight to see at this difficult time a Caucasian man and an African American man hugging and laughing together. And someone saw that story and said, I think I can help you find the rest of your biological family. And I think I can help you find your mother with the information you have. And so several hours later, that search angel, Amy, she said, this is your mother. And she had found her. I was 36 years old, and after 36 years, she had found my biological mother.
Now, John, what is this search angels? What exactly is that?
Yeah. Well, I posted on something, and they would love to hear this shout out, a Facebook group called DNA Detectives. And when you post your information, they determine if they can help you find someone that you're looking for, or at least fill in some gaps in your family tree, lineage, background, history. So this, for her, she's top tier. She does it absolutely free. She used the information available, the pictures, the DNA, and she found the person that was my biological mother. And she said, this is it. And at the end, she said, God bless, Godspeed. I wish you all the best. That was it.
Incredible. And so she did all this work.
Yeah.
And then reconnected you with your biological mother.
Yeah. Well, she gave me a script. She said, this, manage your expectations. Some people reach out to their biological families, and if they say, we want nothing to do with you, don't contact us. And she prepared me for that. And I was prepared, I think. So I reached out on Facebook and I said, hey, use the script that the search angel gave me. And I said, I'm trying to fill in some gaps. And the lady on the other end of the messenger, she said, how do you think we're connected? And I said, well, I'm not sure. And I didn't want to say, hey, I'm your son. That would have been pretty unnerving, right?
Can you imagine a DM like that?
I can't. I would delete it. And so she said, well, I lost a son in 1982, and he was born in July in Broward County, Florida. And I said, I was born in July 1982 in Broward County. And she said, oh my God, you're my son. I've been looking for you. And so after all of those years, we were able to reconnect. And Amy, this search angel, these DNA detectives, she helped close a gap in my life that I didn't know was there, a very painful gap. And I needed to close that so that I could grow as a man, as a leader, and that made the world of difference in my life.
Fascinating. That's an incredible story. God has definitely surrounded you with different kinds of angels.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about this person who was this search angel, someone who was working on your behalf and reconnecting you with your biological mother.
Yeah.
How can we be more like angels?
Yeah, I think, man, Anil, I love this question because it sits with me every day. It really does. I've been saved by an angel, a supernatural being came and took me out of a burning car. A non-supernatural being brought healing to my heart. That story, I learned that I was a product of rape, and my biological mother decided that she was in an abusive relationship. She had been assaulted by someone else, and the man beat her mercilessly in May of 1982. I was born in July. My parents that adopted me, they made a decision. They said, we were impressed to adopt a child in 1982 in May. And it's very likely that they were impressed to adopt a child while my mother was being beaten with me in her womb. And so when she went into labor, she got to the hospital as soon as possible, gave birth, and got back home because she felt that the man she was with, who went to prison for attempted murder years later, would have taken her life and mine.
Incredible.
And so when I think about how we can be angels, I think it's our ability to say yes, to help someone with something that they cannot help themselves with. And I think God uses us to do that. From the time I was saved in that burning car until now, and I now know that I wasn't rejected by my biological mother. I was protected. And that's a healing that only an angel could deliver, right? And so since then, I say yes to every opportunity that comes. I have, as in my life, and I'd encourage your viewers, if you have the opportunity to make a difference, do so. I have been called to the Syrian border, which is one of the greatest humanitarian crises of my lifetime. And I've been able to help refugees there. 6 weeks after the conflict in Ukraine, I was able to arrive at the Ukrainian border to help organize Europe's response to protecting women and children as they travel through Child Impact International. I was able to help organize that, and I worked with people in high places to do that, government officials. And so I remember when I realized what was happening, one of the Ukrainian refugees used her translator device that we gave because we didn't have enough translators. And on the translator, she said, I don't believe in God, but I believe you are an angel sent here to get me out of this place. And I think in that instance for her, because I was obedient to God's voice to go and help if I could, I became an angel.
How can we do more of the work of angels?
Yeah, I'm not a believer that do only what is convenient. I think do what you can. Spill your life out for other people. There is this idea of self-preservation, and it is important to care for self. But care for yourself only so that you can have enough energy to care for others. Protect the borders of your energy level, and you can't say yes to everything, but I think we can be angels by showing up in the lives of people who need that. In my journey, everybody's not called to go into war zones and conflict zones like I am. And I do that, and I even serve now as a volunteer in Chicago. It's been a violent area for many, many years. And it's dangerous and it's difficult, but as I see lives change there, it matters. And I think that for us, say yes to the opportunity to change someone's life. It can be very small to you, but very large to others. And what I mean, I'll say it in a very simple way. If you have any inclination, any impression to do something kind for someone, to step in, to give, to share, you do that. And you never know the ripple effect that that would have in their lives.
Big acts or small acts of kindness all make a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? Sometimes we do look for some of those great opportunities, but we don't oftentimes always need to go to another country.
No.
We can be a blessing, a help wherever we're at. You know, I was looking at this study not too long ago, and it was looking at the world's happiest people. And one of the things it pointed out in this study about the world's happiest people is that there was a particular trait that seems to be a pattern with all these happy people, and that was the trait of generosity.
Wow, that's good.
The very act of giving was something that was correlated with happiness, and as you pointed out, you know, as we give, as we bless others, you know, God takes care of us and our heart in that very process.
It's true, it's true. Sometimes I struggle from day to day with some of the things that I'm recovering from and in my injuries, but when I go out and volunteer, I feel most myself and I feel most grounded. I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I think as humans, the second human being was created because the first human being couldn't do it alone. And I think that we need to have that mindset for humanity, for each other.
That's right. It seems that whenever you help somebody in need, like as you said before in the way you defined it, someone who can't help themselves, with something that's just out of their control. And when you step into that work, you're doing the work of angels.
Yeah, and I think I think one of Satan's deceptions is that angels have to be glowing with wings. And I think if we believe that, it would be easy for him to deceive us in the very end, because all he's got to do is show up with some glow and some wings. And I think that understanding that God will never do anything or send anyone to distract us from his plan, his love, and his care for our lives, I think that it's good to know that we can be instruments in his hands as a mighty angel would be.
Now, you know, I think of the word evangelism. We hear that word all the time. The word angel is right in the center, square center of the word evangelism. And, you know, coming back to your biological mother, as you were reunited with her, and now you were in contact with her, how has God used you in that whole process and reunion, in that connection with her?
Yeah, I don't know if I could fully measure it because it's such a journey. But in her life, while she had embraced in her, after 37 years, she had gone through a great deal of trauma, a great deal of abuse. My biological siblings, I was her first child, and she was able to keep them and raise them. She got out of that relationship after an attempted murder on her life. And she had not embraced the idea of being a part of any faith community. Like, I don't really want to deal with church people, church. That's just kind of not where I am. And in our experience, after a year or so, I got a call, and I believe in taking a rest every 7 days, just taking a full break and reflecting that on God as creator, and he saved me and got me on a good path and protected my life. And I honor that every 7 days, like sunset Friday to sunset Saturday. And it's a biblical concept. It's not just for any particular cultural group, for humanity. And she called me, and she had embraced this idea. And the flood of peace that had come into her life, the changes that were taking place in my siblings' lives and my nieces and nephew and her husband's life, that change had been embraced by the family. And because of our encounter, things began to change for their family. They were experiencing a great deal of financial strain. And God doesn't always bless financially. I would much rather peace over money, right?
Right.
But they were experiencing health challenges. And because they've embraced this idea of peace and faith community and participating with other believers in God's promises, they have gone in a whole different direction. They live in another state. They live in a home that they own. They don't have bills hanging over their head. Their health is still facing challenges, but much better.
There seems to be such an improvement.
Full
in their
transformation,
lives.
full transformation. That's a good indication that God is using you when people around you are experiencing transformation, and that you should be experiencing yourself.
That's incredible. You're blessed, and the people around you are blessed in that very process.
Sure.
That's right. You know, in this conversation about angels, I was reading 1 Peter, and Peter was pointing out that angels desire to look into the gospel. Now, why are angels interested in the gospel?
The gospel is an expression of God's intention for humanity. And the gospel, if I use big words, it's not only what happened in the recorded synoptic Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It is also the ongoing expression of God's intention for humanity. And that is, I am here, I will not leave you, and I am going to make right all that is wrong in this world. And I think angels love to exercise the ability of saying, no matter how bad it is, I'm going to help you see that it's going to be all right one day. So for me, a burning car, okay, for supernatural. Non-supernatural context for a human being a messenger, a gospel carrier. John, you were not rejected when you were given up for adoption. You were protected. And I think for me, showing up in Ukraine or Syria or Haiti or the Pacific Northwest during the fires a few years ago, I think showing up in those places, whether I'm carrying a cat for somebody who has too many under their arms trying to get away, or I'm carrying someone's child who's not responding, and we're doing everything we can to get them to a place where medical professionals can provide. We bring that gospel of Jesus. No matter how bad it gets, I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to make this right one day.
John, that's beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing with us. We've been talking with John Boston about heavenly angels and earthly ones too. I'm sure you have questions, so stick around for our Q&A session after this break, so don't go away. Welcome back to Hope at Night. Who has an angel question for John Boston today? Right over there.
So how can we act as angels and show up for people who are less fortunate?
Yeah, I think the impression that God puts on us to respond is it occurs because of location, it occurs because of skill set, and it also occurs because of resource. And so, in other words, if you're in the place or can be in the place, you have the ability to provide a help, and you have that ability available to you, then you should probably exercise it. And so sometimes that might be lunch. It might be helping somebody move out of a crisis situation. If you can be in the place and you have the ability and the resource to do it, be that. And in doing so, you exercise the movement of the gospel. You're sharing compassion. And I think that is my best possible answer right now. You know, it's so interesting. One of the fastest answers to prayer is when I simply just say, God, use me to help somebody today. Sure. Yeah. He's so quick because there's so much need all around us. Yeah. You become sensitive and aware. That's right. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Right over there.
You talked about good and bad angels. Do you call these bad angels demons? And if so, what kind of activities are they doing in the seen and the unseen?
Yeah, the first instance we see of this idea of this great controversy, this great conflict, starts in heaven. And as it unfolds, we find that there are fallen angels. These fallen angels are demons. But you got to be really careful, because one of the father of lies, John 8:44, Satan is the father of lies. The lie that he perpetuates keeps us susceptible to more lies. And one of those is that demons are going to show up with red skin and horns. But I know a lot of women who've come in contact with some demons as abusers. I know a lot of children who've met men or women who have been inflicted great harm on their lives. And those persons were under the impression of fallen angels. But the beautiful thing is that when Christ comes into our lives, greater is he that is in us than those in the world. In other words, he can overcome that. And he uses us to be that victory in other people's lives.
So a lot of these depictions of demons, this isn't some kind of otherworldly or some kind of other level of creation. These are fallen angels.
Yes.
That's when we're talking about demons, like when you read the Gospels, possessing people, we're talking about fallen angels here.
Yeah.
We're talking about demons harassing people. We're talking about fallen angels when we talk about that.
And yes, and Anil, if we really look at it, their power is not their supernatural ability. The most diabolical component of their power is that they had the audacity to fight God in heaven. And I think that audacity translates into the boldness that they have to do whatever it takes to destroy God and his children and his people, his creation, humanity. And so we have to be very careful. This is an entity of lies that are willing to do whatever it takes to get us to not believe in him, in God.
Incredible. John, you talked about this war in heaven, and you were talking about this conflict. Are there reading resources that we could turn to in regards to learning more about this spiritual conflict, started in heaven, this controversy, and then move to this world?
First, I think the Bible is a great resource. And one of the ways to do that is, I think, go through Genesis chapter 1 through 9, and then going to Revelation chapter 14 is a really powerful indication of how God tries to mend that, and 20 through 22. But there's a book that I love. It's a historical expose, okay? It's called The Great Controversy. It's one of the most printed books in the world, one of the most printed books in the world. It's written by an author who had a great deal of exposure to God doing special things. She had a third grade education, very likely a disability, okay, that I'm sensitive to, like a TBI of sorts, okay? But she was able to produce over 100,000 pages of literature and published and otherwise. And so The Great Controversy, powerful. One of my very good friends, his whole life changed in that book. And I think that it's a great opportunity to say, let me look at how God has been fighting this fight for us throughout human history.
Is there any other questions? Right over there.
But if there were fallen angels, that would mean that heaven is not perfect.
It's an interesting question. There was a war in heaven, without a doubt. What we find in Revelation 21 and 22, the summation of what will happen at the end of time, what we see is that Christ establishes his kingdom actually on the earth. And so I think that that's powerful to consider this. When Jesus came the first time, as we see the story in the Gospels, he came as a baby by himself and lived as a man and died. When he comes in a second coming, as the Bible helps us understand in Matthew 25 or 1 Thessalonians 4, as we look at it even in Revelation, he brings all of heaven with him. And then in his final return, after we've looked at everything and we say, yeah, just and true are all your ways, Heaven is absolutely perfect in the context that we can see every action that heaven has taken on humanity's behalf, on behalf of trying to restore the angels before they fell, was perfect and without fault. And then he lifts the entire physical kingdom and brings it to earth. He reconciles what started in heaven with what he ends on earth. And in that sense, heaven will be on earth and will be perfect. And I think that that's a powerful indication of God's intention for humanity.
John, let's back up a little bit. You're bringing up the idea of restoration, the new heavens, new earth. Let's rewind, and now we come to our world today. Let's rewind before that, and obviously we have a rebellion that took place in heaven. And let's rewind before that, and then you got a perfect heaven. What exactly are the dynamics in heaven that would be allowing a place like, or environment like heaven, to go from a place of bliss and peace to go to a place of war? How could God allow that?
Yeah. God is love. And that allocation means that the decision is in his creation. My daughter was about 2 years old, and she wanted to touch the red indicator on the heater in our home. And I oftentimes would stop her from doing so. And I realized that I wouldn't be able to always have my eye on my 2-year-old in this particular space. And so one day when her mother was not home, because I wouldn't be able to do this if her mother were home, I did not stop her. I told her, this will hurt you. This will harm you. You will not be happy. This will be a big ouch. She decided that she was going to touch the red indicator that the heater was on. I love my child. To this day, she has not touched any red heat indicators. And when she did, she was completely redeemed and restored. She disobeyed Daddy, but in that moment, I helped her understand that I have given you the choice. I have told you the cost of making this choice. But if you decide, and you should return to me, I would receive you unto myself. And I think that that is a parallel for what Christ will do. Heaven, angels rebelled against God. Was heaven a perfect place? Yes. Did God displace, put out those angels? Absolutely. When there was a war in heaven, was it perfect? Did God stop being perfect to put those angels out? No, I don't think he did. And he is the source of heaven. Where he is where he desires us to be. And he loves us so much that he will tabernacle with earth for humanity, meaning he will place heaven on earth. And will it be perfect? It will be perfect. And so I hope that addressing the nature of what happened and what will happen places heaven right where it's supposed to be.
It really speaks to this idea of how much God absolutely values freedom, that he would allow conflict in his own home.
Absolutely.
That's incredible.
It is. It's immense. And it's painful. I experience pain from things that I face. And I do have to ask, why would you allow this to happen? But I have found that that question does not change his love for me. And it changes my love for him, though. I grow because I experience sometimes the answers, sometimes not the answers. But the times he does answer, give me a well, a reservoir of great exposure to his intention for my life.
Right. And it shows, as you had said earlier, pointing out God is love. It doesn't say God is power. Obviously, God is powerful. These are characteristics of God. But the fact that God is love shows that the primary ethic or the dynamic by which he runs the universe is essentially upon this concept of liberty and choice and freedom of expression and response to him.
And wouldn't it be great propaganda against God if Satan puts us in a place where we give God the blame for what Satan has done?
Right. Fascinating. Any other questions? Right over there.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if you believe that our loved ones who have passed, they come back as angels to guide us through tough times. And also, how do angels play a part in the idea of reincarnation?
No, I really love this because I have people that have died in my life, and without the Bible, I would be left wondering what happened. Was this the end? Because it was painful and it was hurtful. The very first lie that Satan told humanity, God said, if you touch this fruit from this tree arbitrarily, you will die. The very first lie Satan said was, you shall not surely die. And he has been able to effectively perpetuate that deception. The wisest man to ever live says there's a time to live, there's a time to die. His father indicated that when we go down to the grave, we don't praise the Lord. And the wisest man to ever live, his father was a king as well. And he loved praising God. His name was David, King David. Scripture over and over again affirms the notion that death is like a sleep. When I wake up, oftentimes I check the news because I know that while I was asleep, things kept happening. But I did not keep happening. I was out. You ever been out for the count? I was out for the count. The Bible calls death like a sleep that only God can wake us up from. The devil wants us to believe that when we die, it is an entryway to something more. But the truth of the matter is, it is the end of life as we know it. And Christ alone will be able to tell us when he resurrects us, as the Bible indicates, gives us life and reward. Either we enter into eternity with him when he returns to the earth, and he will come back just as sure as he came the first time, or we will be meted out with the choice that we made in life to follow Satan and believe his lies. And in a strange act, the Bible indicates, in a very strange act, in mercy, because we would not find our place of joy and peace in eternity if we've not lived a life for Christ here. He will eradicate sin and sinfulness and the sinner, ultimately ending with a universe that has been cleansed of this plague, this blight, this curse. And so when our loved ones die, when we die, we will not ascend to heaven. We will not descend into hell. We will, in fact, go into the grave, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And Christ will hold life in trust, and he will alone have the ability to give that back to us when he returns. Reincarnation is an absolutely fascinating concept, but it is absolutely a derivative. While many faith adherents embrace it, it is a derivative of this very first lie told and really in an anthropological sense. You can actually trace how the idea of life after death has evolved through different cultural contexts over time, but all originated with the first idea that when we die, we're dead until the life giver tells us we can live again.
Incredible. Fantastic answer. Any other questions? Right over there.
You talked a little bit about the beginning of times and the end of times, and I was wondering if maybe these encounters with angels happening in your life and all over the world, are they perhaps signs of the end of times? And also, are there any other signs we might be encountering today that could indicate the end of times?
Before Christ comes, everybody's got to know. Everybody alive has got to know that God loves them and has a plan. And so just recently I was traveling in another country, and while I was there, there were a group of women who are part of a faith community that does not identify Christ as a savior, okay? They don't have access to a Bible, and they were washing their clothes, and they were sharing a dream that they all shared. They kept getting the same dream. And so they found a Christian church, which is rare in this part of the world. And they went and said, this is our dream. The people there in that Christian church says, we believe God is speaking to you. And sure enough, they have been hearing the gospel. Angels were delivering this gospel message until human agents could come and support them in their journey. But just as God is doing this, in these final moments of Earth's history, we're experiencing an increase in conflict. I've been to places that aren't even covered in the news, where people are in fear of their lives, and there's absolute assault on different faith communities, ethnic minorities, social disparities that are marked by abuse and trauma and conflict. And so the point that I'm making is, just as sure as there is an increase in angelic activity for God's people, there is an increase in the fallen angels' work and Satan's work to deceive the world, to make people believe it's God's fault that all of this has happened, when the truth of the matter is that Satan's plan all along is to keep this world and God's kingdom for himself. And God is not going to allow that. He is going to be triumphant in that process.
It's a great explanation. We've seen so much agitation in our world, and this is growing at unprecedented levels. I've talked to people who, lived what seemed to be lifetimes, and they've told me, they said, in all the years we've lived, we've never seen what's happening today ever before. It is a completely new experience, and everyone is wondering and asking questions.
Yeah.
What's next?
We can feel that the world is not better today than it was yesterday. This is part of Satan's lie. His idea is humans are getting better. We're changing, which is a lie against even creation. But the truth of the matter is we're not getting better. We're getting worse. We're devolving. We're getting more, it's more difficult to live in the world than it was. When I was a kid, I didn't have a problem leaving the front door open or leaving the car unlocked. People were robbing, but it wasn't as prevalent. And I think that we feel it. We know it.
Yeah, there's definitely a heaviness in the air. Got time for more? Any other questions? Right over there.
So I have a question in regards to kind of like your journey after the second accident, after losing your job and subsequently, losing financial abundance in this way. What happened when you started having those questions with God? What happened when maybe you lost faith? When you were put in this position, what questions were you having at that time?
Listen, I very much so appreciate this question. It hurts. It's painful. It's a lot of loss. It's a loss of a sense of identity, a sense of fulfillment, sense of purpose, a sense of weakness, moving from provider to patient. And so in that, I have chosen to trust God. I think He's done a great deal for me, but more importantly, He's done a great deal in me. And I probably could not have faced this without that kind of faith. It is an absolutely overwhelming experience to feel like you're lost in your own mind, or you can't communicate clearly, or you don't understand what's happening. But I'm sitting here today, and I'm still under doctor's care, and I understood your question, and I may not remember what was happening, but I think that it's a testament that I've decided to trust God. I've decided to. It doesn't always feel good. And in making that decision, I think He's decided to trust me as well. Yeah.
Right. Beautiful. Any other questions? Right over there.
A question that I have is, why does evil exist? Is it so that good can exist?
There was this farmer, he had a field, and he put good seed out and planted a great crop. The people that were responsible for caring for the crop, they kept seeing all of these bad weeds or invasive plants growing, and they said, man, you planted bad seed. And he said, no, I didn't plant bad seed. I put good seed on good ground, but an enemy has come in and sown this bad seed. And they said, well, we'll go in and take it out. He said, no, I'm the only one that knows what my plants look like. And let me do that at the appropriate time. And I think that evil exists because the enemy has sown it in the world. And he has done an excellent job making sure that bad seed is put in good places so that he can say, look at how God put these bad seeds in the ground. But God is saying to us, no, I will separate it when the time comes. Let them grow together right now, but I'm going to make it right. And when that day comes, He's going to pluck out those bad seeds. He's going to preserve the good like you, and He's going to make sure it never, ever happens again.
John, if we were to break down evil to its most fundamental core, what exactly is the root of it?
Anil, this notion of thought and action in and where we are marked in the end. We're either marked in our, on our head, our thoughts, or our actions in our hands. And I think it's kind of like the notion of evil is the exercise against God. It is the exercise against God. And that is what Satan's effort has been placed in. It is to be against God as creator, to be against God as redeemer. Even the lie that God let this happen to me and he doesn't love me, it is directly against God as protector. And if we're not careful, evil creeps into our hearts, maybe not as an action, but as a thought. Or maybe not as a thought, but as an action. And I think reconciling that by surrendering our thoughts and actions to him is how we overcome. Evil is what is against God.
Amazing. Thank you so much, John. This has been an incredible discussion. We've covered all things angels tonight. We've seen how there are indeed angels who are agents or messengers from God, whether they are divine beings or just people that God uses to help one another. We've also seen that while God created all angels perfect, one angel chose to use their free choice to rebel against God and then persuaded a third of the angels to join him. From that time on, that war in heaven came to earth. Lucifer and the demons are responsible for all the evil and the trauma we see in the world today. We are told, though, in the Bible that one day Jesus will return and bring an end to the misery and suffering upon this world. Satan, his demonic angels, and those who have joined them will be destroyed forever. So until then, we need to make sure we're walking with God daily, praying and testing everything by the Bible. And God has promised to bring us safely home. And knowing that gives us hope at night. Take care, and we'll see you next week.